and welcome to Topchand.com. Recently, a street in Tel Aviv, the economic and cultural center of Israel, was named after the great Indian poet Gurudev Ravindra Nath Tagore. The news was picked up by few Indian media houses, which more or less was only about the formal announcements and nothing else. So, we thought of getting the whole story. So today, we have with us Rima Mintazar. She is a cultural attaché at Embassy of Israel, New Delhi. Her primary focus is to develop a better understanding between India and Israel through cultural activities and exchanges. She has a specialization in cinema and gender studies from Ben Gurion University, Israel, and she has been teaching cultural studies for several years now. So, welcome, Rima.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Let's start again. So the street has been named after Gurudev Ravindra Nath Tagore. He is a very revered poet in India and all over the world, of course. So what was the reason, or what was the incidents which led to the naming of the street over there on the name of Gurudev Ravindra Nath Tagore? Can you please?
Okay, so you were in the 1960s. There was extended neighborhood in Tel Aviv, and one of the streets called after Tagore. Tagore was a well-known figure in the history of the Zionist movement. And when Israel was established, they started to give names for the streets. Yeah, a new country, you know it better. There was a new cities, a new places needs to be called. One of the names that been chosen was Tagore's name, and mainly because he was supporting the cause of the Zionist movement during the struggle of the Jewish people to establish a national home in what was then Palestine and today Israel. And as a gesture of thank you and acknowledged, the street was called after him. So Tagore is a well-known figure in Israel and was even before Israel was established. And this is a tribute to his, goodwill and support.
So India and Israel, they have been very good understanding between the people and the nation as well. So, going a little bit in the history, there was a person in Israel who had met with Ravindra Nath Tagore, and she had later on came to India and worked with Gurudev Ravindra Nath Tagore at State and Santi Niketan in Kolkata. So, can you elaborate a little bit more about the person there? Who is
Of course, gladly. Yes. So, first there was many of Jewish people who met Tagore. He was well known during the first half of the 20th century. He was well known around the Jewish world and the Zionist movement. And but one in particular was known for her relation with Tagore. This woman called Shlomit Plau. And just recently a book has been published by the Israeli scholar Dr. Shimon Lev about her journey she originated from Lithuania, moved to what was then Palestine, and then traveled the world. She was a kindergarten teacher. She was went to mainly to study new method of education, and in her journeys, and also think about it, a young woman, unmarried, traveling the world by herself during the 20s. It's really rare, even before the 20s, in the beginning of the 20th century. Very rare. I mean, she was a very unique person. She arriving to New York in the year of 1920. During that time, Tagore was in New York and he gave lecture in a synagogue. She attended this lecture. And later, after this lecture, she's also meeting him with several of her friends in a hotel, in his hotel. And she described it later, she wrote about it and it's been published. And she was writing about it that this meeting changed her life. Her life before meeting Tagore and after meeting Tagore were totally different. In the next 2 years, yes, they met at 1920. Then in the next 2 years, they exchanged letters and she is asking from him to join his ashram in Shantiniketan. So he asked her to come to teach in the ashram. And for 2 years, she's spending 2 years in Shantiniketan as a German teacher, but mainly she wants to be close to Tagore. What she later explained, she said that she wrote that they had this relationships of a teacher and a student, but it's more close to the concept, the local concept of guru, yeah, and a follower. She was really amazed by his figure. She called him a prophet. When she saw him, she felt like she's seeing some figure from the Bible. Yes, this is our holy script. And there was a really strong connection between them. After these 2 years, she's coming back to Israel. And she is writing about her experience in her travel all over the world, and also about the time that she spent in Shantiniketan. She's publishing this in the local newspapers in Israel, and at the same time, there's a lot of people who start to read Tagore's poetry because it's been translated to Hebrew. And keep in mind that Hebrew was a very new language. It means a very ancient, but it was in the Holy Script. It's become a daily language just recently, and yet Tagore is one of the first Indian, or maybe the first, to be translated to Hebrew. And it became well known. And in 1935, she is publishing her book about her traveling, and 10 years later, in 1945, she is publishing a biography about Tagore called Ravindra Nath Tagore. And she said that not only her, there were more famous Jewish during that time that met Tagore. One of them was Albert Einstein. Yeah. Albert Einstein was a well-known figure, yes, I don't need to tell you. And in 1930, Tagore and Einstein meeting in Germany, in the village where Einstein was living. This meeting was covered by the New York Times then. And as a gesture to this meeting, so the street of Tagore in Tel Aviv is crossing Einstein Street, means they are meeting. And it was, yes, so it was kind of a gesture to this back then meeting, 1930 meeting of Einstein and Tagore. So Tagore was really well known in the Zionist movement in Palestine, in Europe, and in the US. And Shlomit Flaum, she took it one more step. Yeah, she wasn't just amazed by his song, she also, by his poetry, she also decided to go and follow him to his ashram. And they've been exchanged letters till the day Tagore died. Means the last letter is from 1940, I think, less than a year before he passed away.
How do you find the connection between NSD and your line of work, that is culture and cinema? Do you have any kind of work coming together and working at NSD?
NSD is a good example, but of course it's not the only institution that we are collaborate with. But NSD is a very good example because we have a lot of joint program with NSD. So just, I think around 2 years ago, there was a play that been shown in NSD based on a Hebrew written play called The D-Book. It's been directed by an Israeli director called David Zinger that spent here 2 months in India, training the student. And I went to see the play. It was fantastic. It was in Hindi. It's been translated to Hindi. It was a beautiful play, really. It was, for me, it was amazing, to see a story that comes from the Jewish tradition translated to Hindi and it played here and played so well. That was beautiful. And this is just one example of, the endless connection between the two cultures, because I know that the two countries also get very well, but I think that the culture also, there's a lot of similarities. So NSD is, yes, it's just one part of it. We also, every time that some Israeli artists and actors or directors coming to India, we're trying to engage with the students of NSD because it is amazing place. And yeah, so there's a good connection, and I hope that after post-corona we will be able to go on with that, because right now there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, any particular story or experience that while coming in India and moving out all to these places that affected you much, that has just placed to your mind that just this is the thing that was that has affected me the most. Any story if you wish to share?
Like it was, I will tell you something, but it was, when I first traveled here, I was overwhelmed. I loved everything, the food, the sound, the noise. I just loved it. So that's why I was, keep coming back here. And in some point, I start to study, and I study cinema. And in some point, I decided that I need to find a link to India through my academic studies. So I decided that I will research Indian cinema, but from an angle that I can connect to. So I decided to dedicate my studies to the role of Jewish actresses during the first days of the cinema here in India. And I found out, and this is something that I didn't know, it's never been written in Israel, but apparently there was a contribution of several known ladies to the Indian cinema. Because, at the beginning of the cinema, it was people from traditional groups didn't allow their daughters to participate in the cinema. So the Jewish community here in India was quite liberal back then. And so it was an option for them. So I focused on the actress Nadira. Nadira. She also played with Raj Kapoor and Nargis in Shri 420. And I called her the first femme fatale of the Indian cinema. And she was she came from a Jewish family. She was born and raised in Mumbai. She passed away in Mumbai also in the year 2006. But it amazed me, the links that I found from the Jewish community here in India to the Indian cinema and their contribution, mainly the women, and this is something that didn't happen also in Israel. But it happened here. The Jewish community, the women in the Jewish community here in India was very progressive, very open. They were willing to, take part in the new industry, very strong, popular, and so I felt, with the help of this research, I become I don't know, even more obsessed about India than I was before. And for me it's the right link, because I didn't grow up here in India, and I didn't want to be the outsider to do research on the local cinema, but I did find the right link for me, and I discovered that these Jewish ladies origin from India were amazing, and their contribution is affecting till today. The Indian cinema in Israel was so popular during the 50s, 60s mainly, and 70s. It was, the film that of Raj Kapoor, Nargis, and Nadira were in Shri 420 was played in theater in Israel for 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row, yes. My mom knows all the lyrics of the songs from this film. Yeah, it was a huge hit. And not only
Yeah.
this film, you know, Sangam,
Mm.
the known film, I think 2 or 3 years ago, was adapted as a play in Israel and was on stage as a musical. So we have this connection. Yes, it's maybe it's a little bit underground because it's cinema. You know, not everybody takes seriously cinema, but it's well known. It was a phenomenal in Israel. The Indian films. This is something that everybody grew up on. This is till today. We have 2 channels in Israel that played Bollywood films constantly.
Oh.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Just stay safe. Take care. Stay safe, and we shall get over it, and it will be okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
For interesting news, follow Topchand.com on Facebook and Twitter and subscribe on YouTube.